And it's a warm welcome to another lockdown edition of Sportzfan Radio. And special guest today is none other than former Penrith Panthers Premiership player and Cronulla Sharks Premiership player, and arranged by the judge, Luke Lewis. Good afternoon, Luke.
Hey, boys. Thanks for having me.
And I'll throw straight to our rugby league expert, Paul Deligan.
G'day, Luke. You might recognise the jersey here. One of many you wore with pride. 17 games for New South Wales, 16 for Australia. One snappy all-star game, 5 City Origin games, and you're one of 42 players who've played over 300 games in the sport that I love and which I'm allowed to rattle on about every week. You started off in 2001. I did notice in your second year you had 2 hat-tricks, if you don't mind. A lot of blokes don't have one in their whole career, so very impressive start to your career. You played with a lot of passion, enthusiasm, and I think the best compliment I saw when I was doing my brush up for today is you've been described as a footballer's footballer, and I don't think it comes much more of a compliment than that. So it's a privilege to have you on the show. We'd love to talk about some of your experiences in this great game.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and thanks for the rap, Paul. I'll tell you what, I haven't heard those stats for a while, but been pretty.
And that's not bad coming from a Rabbitohs supporter.
I didn't mention that the Rabbitohs.
That's all right.
And Paul, I just
last week
that
he had a Rabbitohs jumper on, Luke.
I've gone for something diplomatic here. You almost joined the Rabbitohs at one point. I'm not going to mention that either. But...
That's all right. Mate.
Also, that Luke won the Churchill Medal back in 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. One of my favourite sporting photographs is Luke holding his little girl Hazel with the team photograph, and it is just a beautiful, poignant photo, which just sort of sums up Luke's career and you know his clear interest in his family. It's a great photo. If you ever get hold of it.
Yeah, John, it's funny you mentioned that photo because well, this is no GR, but it might sound funny, but in 2006, it was me year of me manifest things and all that sort of stuff. Bit of a weird. I'll put up a whole lot of gold. 15 and 16 grand. I put him in my locker at train, looked at it every day, right on the window, wrote in the book. And then I got the photo, and that photo I've actually got sitting downstairs in a photo frame. And mate, she's sitting there just holding it, and it's like she's looking at it, and she's trying to bite it because she's only 6 months old. But it was a photo that I was dreaming of, and I got it. I couldn't believe it. So yeah, the one that you're talking about, it brings back so many great memories.
There's a very good photo I saw during the week of Benji Marshall holding his son. Did you play much against him, and can you tell us a bit about him? He seems to be loved by all and just a great player. Yeah,
good fella, Benji. Look, I haven't played with Benji, obviously, because he's a New Zealander. I never got to play with him in the Indigenous in the All-Stars game, but a lot of my teammates have played with him, had a little bit to do with him, and I got to play against him. I think he made his debut in 2003. I remember playing him at Penrith Park, and you knew he was going to be a superstar. He just had, really good speed. His feet were amazing, great ball skills, but mate, he changed our game for a lot of young kids these days. Like you still hear kids out the park and they go, "Yeah, I'm Benji Marshall," because they all want to do the flick passes and all the flamboyant no-look passes and the chip and chases and use their footwork and step people. And mate, he's been a great player for a long period of time. And to make another grand final, 16 years down the path in his career is absolutely mind blowing. So. Yeah, look, it would have been nice to see him win that grand final, South, and get him another ring, but wasn't to be. But he's had an absolutely magnificent career. And I tell you what, he's been through the ringer as well, but he just kept, picking himself up, bringing himself back to the field and playing his best football, and didn't care what other people thought or said. So for me, it just goes to show what kind of person he is and what sort of mindset he's got. And for me, it's just mentally strong. So yeah, I love everything he's done.
Did you know he can solve a Rubik's Cube within a minute? I kid you not.
No, I didn't know that, but wouldn't surprise me. He's outstanding at everything he does.
Yeah, it's not the sort of, it's just, I think it'll look a bit unusual. I don't know what happens in change rooms, but if you look across and a bloke's working on a Rubik's Cube, might be a bit unusual, I'd say. But Just speaking of versatility, you've played every position, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, I'm very lucky actually. Probably the best thing ever happened to me, playing every position on the footy field. But I remember when I was a young kid, I sort of used to play 5'8" lock, and then someone sort of got injured in the centres. Had to play centres when I was a kid. But one thing I remember is that I didn't want to be pigeonholed to a player that had to play in one position, because then all of a sudden you're going, well, there's only 16 teams. That means there's only really 16 positions unless you're playing a position where there's 2 of them. So my mindset was that I just sort of wanted to be able to play football and just, whatever challenge gets thrown at me, get out there and do the same thing. It wasn't hard. It was, make your tackles, get the ball from one end of the field to the other end of the field, and do it the best possible you possibly can, and just try and be a really good defender, work with people around you. And I think it was the best thing I did, purely because if I didn't do that, who knows, I might not have got the opportunity to play in the blue jersey, or, the opportunity to play in the Australian jersey. But to have that sort of utility value, I think it opened a lot of doors for me, and it's the best thing I did.
The Penrith boys obviously enjoying their premiership win. The trophy's looking a bit worse for wear, but I did read 30 years ago it fell off the back of a ute when the Raiders were carrying it around. So can you tell us about your 2003 premiership win? We don't need the full details, but did you party pretty hard?
Mate, it was funny because 2003, I was only a young kid. I was only 20 years old, and I was so, motivated and driven on what I wanted to do and what I wanted to achieve. And when we won the grand final, I probably, to be honest with you, in 2003, didn't appreciate the opportunity I had, and I wish I did. But I enjoyed it, absolutely. It was pretty amazing. Got to do it with people that I looked up to, and obviously kids that guys that I'd come through the grades with, like Luke Rooney and Trent Waterhouse, Luke Swain, Shaden Rodney, these kind of guys. But the next day, Mad Monday, we had an awesome night all the way through to the next day. Probably around 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, they named the Australian Kangaroo Tour team, 2003 Kangaroos, and I was lucky enough to get my name read out. So my mindset had went straight from having a few beers and being a little bit dusty to going straight home, preparing my next week to make sure that I was ready to go for the Kangaroos. So I basically started training that afternoon because I didn't want to let a goal that I'd written down as a child that I wanted to play for my country, let it slip. But so if I had my time over again, I probably would just sat back and relaxed a bit more and waited for that to come along. But being a young kid, I was that motivated. I just wanted to get home and train. So my celebrations in 03 were totally different to the 2016 celebrations. So 2016 was totally different. I enjoyed the whole week. Then I got lucky enough to get on a flight on the Friday after and went to Dallas, and then went to the Cowboys Stadium, and then ended up going to Vegas, and then went and watched the Raiders play, went to a couple of basketball games, and it just kept going and going for like 3-4 weeks straight. It was absolutely mind-blowing. And I was still living on the high from the grand final, so totally different celebration, the second one.
Your career went for about 17 odd years. Can you just tell us a bit how the training standards changed? Because we've got a few Melbourne Demons fanatics on the forum here, and I'll never forget Max Gawn, the big ruckman, when he first started. He arrived with a packet of cigarettes. So obviously training has changed a lot. How was it when you started compared to when you ended in terms of protein shakes and how much healthier people were?
Oh, I changed heaps. I remember I was very lucky in 2000 actually. I got to do a pre-season. I was only young. I got to do a pre-season on and off with first grade, and I was playing Harold Matthews, and you'd sort of go up and do a couple of sessions because they were pretty good kind of for bringing young kids through and just getting a bit of experience. Then SG Ball come along. We've done a pre-season, obviously with SG Ball, and then we'll again back up training with first grade twice a week. But my very first pre-season in first grade was all about the old long distance running, running yourself into the ground and weights, and just never ended. But every Tuesday and Thursday night, we'd go to the pub and make sure we had a few beers and a feed. And that's what it was about, just building relationships. Then as the years got on, the GPS come in. Then it all come back to recovery, rehydrating, weighing in before you train, weighing out after you train, making sure your weight's back on before you leave the training park. It sort of changed a whole lot. And obviously the professionalism of it. But, I was always a big believer you had to do more away from the field anyway. So I just sort of kept that pretty much my whole life. I remember Brad Izzard, he was obviously a Penrith great. And he sort of told me at a young age, it's not what you do when you're getting seen by your coach, it's what you do when no one's going to give you the accolades. So mate, I'd go home after training and go for a 5K run or an 8K run and do HIIT sessions. And I was always doing, an extra hour of fitness every day when I was a young kid all the way through till pretty much when I retired. So a whole lot didn't change for me when it come to, amount of work I did, but it definitely come down to, it did change a lot when I got towards the back end of my career about looking after my body and making sure I was doing the right thing. I'm not a big alcohol drinker anyway, but mate, straight after games or training sessions, it was protein shakes straight in, getting the right nutrients straight into my belly and making sure I was doing everything right so I could obviously prolong my career, which I think it did. I think it gave me an extra couple of years, definitely.
It might explain why you're one of only 40-odd players to play the 300 games. And you've kept busy after footy with your fine work with White Ribbon and also your ABC commentating duties. Yeah, love ABC, mate. The radio is probably my dream job. Working with a great crew. There's a really good bunch of people there. And obviously all the big bosses are awesome. You can sit down and have a chat like we're having a chat now. There's no... I don't know, everyone's on the same level. It's just a really good community. And then obviously all the charity work I absolutely love because I do believe I have to give back a little bit because if it weren't for them charities, it just makes you feel good by able to give back. And maybe doing some great work out Western Sydney where I grew up in Doonside, Blacktown there, helping young kids, aspire to achieving their goals is what they want to do as sports people. So we're out there at the moment, obviously coaching behaviours. We're a big believer in coaching behaviours first and everything will sort of follow behind that. And, mate, it's all steps in the right direction, but baby steps at the moment. Speaking of coaching, we were always fascinated here about coaches, and I think there's certain things that are transcend across all the different sports. You obviously played under Ivan Cleary. Could you compare perhaps his style to Wayne Bennett, what you've encountered with him? Well, to be honest with you, with Ivan, I only had a little bit of time with Ivan. When I was there, when Ivan came over, they were doing a bit of a clean out and there was obviously a lot of salary cap problems. So they had to sort of get that sorted. And I was a captain at the time. So I was the first person to put my hand up and say that I probably had to move on, which was hard because obviously Penrith was my club that I absolutely loved as a kid. Never thought in my wildest dreams would I'd leave, but it was probably the best thing I did because it gave me a whole remotivation of what I needed to do. But yeah, look, Ivan was a pretty quiet sort of a fella, never really blew up. But again, he was going through a rebuild stage. So for me, it was totally different. Wayne Bennett, I had him in the Australian side once. And one thing I loved about him was just about building relationships outside of rugby league. He didn't talk footy. He was a big believer that you hear, you know what you need to do. You just need to execute it on the night. And he was all about, what do you do away? What's your favourite thing? You've talked about family, how many sisters, brothers, all that sort of stuff. He was right into understanding you as a person. So I love that little bit of time I have with Wayne Bennett. But again, I wish I got to spend a little bit more time with Wayne Bennett and Craig Bellamy and those kind of people, just because they're just so successful, but they're all about bringing out the best in other people. It seems to be a common theme that they care for the players. I mean, there's one coach, I won't name him, former Panthers coach, where he's texting players at 2 a.m. and about defensive structures. You've got to be able to switch off, I think, and also want to play for the coach. You want to win for them rather than just feeling like you're just there for their purposes. Yeah, absolutely. And I can give Shane Flanagan a rap for that. He put a really good side together and got us all together. Had a bit of a game plan. And then I remember, Mickey Annis and James Maloney and these guys all going in and say, oh, mate, can we just change our game plan a bit? And he goes, yep, okay, what do you want to do? But, you can get some coaches and no, we're going to do it this way. Or you can get some coaches that are open to, okay, what do you want to do? What's going to help us, be successful? And, Shane Flanagan was really good with that as well. So, look, I think if you haven't got that relationship and trust in your players, obviously it'll make your job very hard. But if you've got full trust in your players and obviously the people around you to execute what you need to execute, and everyone buys in on what you want to do, I think, obviously your world's your oyster. I just sit there and you look at Craig Bellamy, and he brings players, never really goes and buys big name players, right? He just brings players through. This is what we do. This is our system. We've got an honesty sort of a system that I trust you, you trust me. I won't give you a job that you can't do. I'll give you a job that you can execute week in, week out, but I expect you to do it. And they do it week in, week out. That's why they're so good. Adam Woolner was on the plane at Tullamarine on the way to Europe, and Craig Bellamy found out about it and said, come and play for us, and he won a premiership. Yeah.
Adam Warno, so Brian Norrie again. He was going out to be a captain coach out in the country. Got an opportunity to go to Melbourne, and he's a grand final winner, absolute legend. And he's so good at doing it. He does it so consistently, Craig Bellamy.
You mentioned his name earlier. I was going to ask you who's the biggest mouth you've seen. I'm not too bad on the mouth, but James Maloney. Obviously, you played alongside him. It'd be a brave man who'd fire a few words in your direction. But who was the most annoying pest you ever played with or against?
Well, it's hard to go past James Maloney. He's but in saying that, he's one of those blokes that you just love. You know, he's I love him to death. I do anything for him. He's one of those guys you need to have in your team. He's an out-and-out winner. Again, he played in the grand final last night, but obviously, come up short. But he's just a winner. He knows how to get things done. But he also knows, how to switch off, how to switch on, what needs to be executed. What's not so important, and he keeps everything pretty lighthearted. So when he knows everyone needs a bit of a laugh or something, he comes up with the right thing at the right time. And I'd hate to coach him, but as a teammate, you love to have him next year. And again, you always know you're going to get a laugh from him. So, mate, I'll give Jimmy that sort of role, the pest. But at the same time, I wouldn't call him a bad pest. He's one of those guys you just love to have in your team.
I was going to say, John McEnroe is a fine guy by all accounts. A lot of it's just mental. I played very low-level cricket, but if I got on the mouth, the batsmen often would just either not hear it, the better ones, or the ones that I could rattle, you're getting on top. And no doubt that was his intention a lot of the time, to just get in the ear and let the opponents know he was there and what they weren't doing right. Yeah,
he did. He was really good at that. Mickey Anderson was probably the best I'd seen at that. He'd get under people's skin, but without going too far overboard, but we'll put them off their game. But the good thing about Jimmy is that you can't get back at him, right? Because he's we used to call him Dory, mate. He'd forget what had happened. Like if he makes a mistake, I threw an intercept pass, who cares? And then it's done. It's forgot about it, doesn't blow up about it, doesn't talk about it, has a laugh, and then gets on with the job. I remember grand final like 2016, we missed, I think he missed a tackle, but something happened. We scored a try. He goes, boys, look, it is what it is. Nothing's going to go our way all night. We've got to have a little bit of something go against us. So this is our challenge. Just give me 5 defensive sets so we can get the ball back and get in good field position, and I promise you we'll win this game. So we went up and we executed the next 5 defensive sets and we won the game. But Jimmy's speech behind the line was absolutely spot on.
Well, they were saying in the grand final that Nathan Cleary, these are commentators who've watched 40 years of footy, they've never seen someone so unable to be rattled.
Yeah, no, he doesn't get rattled, mate. Like I said, that Dory mentality, you can't get rattled, right? So, mate, he's got an answer for everything, but at the same time, he's got so much trust and belief in his talent, and he knows what he can do to get across the line. And again, he just builds up that respect level and relationship with his teammates, that he trusts all his teammates to do the job. So, mate, it's very hard to rattle something like
that. Just a couple of questions for you. The best player you've played with, and also the toughest player you've played against.
Best player. Oh, mate, it's hard to sort of say best players. I was lucky enough to play with like Darren Lockyer, Petro Simonasiva, Craig Gower, and Billy Slater, Cam Smith, Cooper Cronk. These guys all stand up for me. Obviously, I think one of the best leader was probably Cam Smith, just super relaxed. Billy Slater, for me on the field, what he could do was absolutely mind-blowing. So, he's one guy that I can't go past. And Cooper Cronk, just his footy mind, his execution on and his obsession on being so good and making sure he's doing the right thing for the team. Again, another one you can't go past. But, look, I can't pick out any individuals. But those guys I just mentioned, mate, they're all, pretty special players. And I'm very grateful I got the opportunity to play with players like
that. Toughest bloke you've ever been hit by?
Oh, mate, I say probably Steve Maddai got me a beauty a couple of times. You're a little outside, you don't get to see him. You're looking in to catch the ball and bang out of the blue, just rib rattler. But he was always a little bit. He always had to keep 2 eyes, one on the ball.
You're freezing with this.
I've got his back now.
Yeah. No, you're back. Because I know Sonny Bill Williams once hit Marcus Bai so hard he thought he was back in Papua New Guinea when the trainer said, "Where are you?"
Yeah, right. There's some big hitters out there. Tell you what, Francis Melly was pretty bad too. Like pretty good at coming off the line and absolutely annihilating blokes. But mate, there's some great wingers. They know how to read the game so well. They know exactly what's going on. It's funny, you say, most of the big hits that I've actually ever seen have not really come straight from the middle. Like Nigel Plummer's pretty good, and obviously, the modern day in Jake Trebojevic and all those sort of guys are awesome. But these wingers, mate, they're reading and coming off the line and putting shots on, absolutely mind blowing.
Luke, just going back to the grand final and Penrith, it just seems to be that Penrith attracts local Penrith Blacktown players and always has, and local people. And I think, I'm not sure how many the grand final team have, but a number of the local boys. What is it about Penrith that seems to keep and grow the young youth, local talent?
Well, mate, just their look, all the kids out there, they love their footy. It's that culture, it's a rugby league culture. And they've just got such a really good, strong junior nursery that they play against week in, week out. Back when I was playing down there, they used to have talent scouts out there every week, keeping an eye on these players. They'd pick the best of the best, and they used to do, the old development squads, get these guys playing with each other, and then, sort of blood them through the system, bringing them through Harold Matts and SG Ball, where they'd pretty much go close to getting to grand final every year. And, mate, that's basically it. But they just love it out there. It is. It's just everything you talk about. There's rugby league. Everywhere you go, you always see football, jerseys. Kids running around the front yard or playing touch footy on the road. It's just one of those things that it's just a dead set, 100% rugby league culture.
It struck me that the Greater Western Sydney and Gold Coast Suns experiments are just that. And the GWS experiment for AFL is just not going to work because there is a genuine love for your game out that way. Do you see AFL getting any sort of a foothold out west of Sydney?
Well, mate, everywhere I go at the moment, they're really making some inroads. AFL is every field that you see AFL post everywhere. There's all the schools have got AFL fields now, all marked out with post everywhere. They're making massive inroads. And I do believe there's so much talent down here in Sydney. Again, it's just they're getting spotted by the right people at the right time. I'm not too sure, but look, I think it will work eventually. Again, it's just everything's about timing, right? You've got to be around for a long period of time. You've got to wait for opportunities, and when the opportunities come, we'll see some shining lights come through. Look, I think the AFL are getting bigger and bigger every year, which is scary signs for rugby league. But at the end of the day, if we can open the gates for any young kid coming through that want to play professional sport, it doesn't matter what sport it is. I'd love to see rugby league, but if it's AFL, soccer, cricket, I don't really care as long as these kids are getting out, doing something they love and getting paid well to do it. How good.
Luke, something that Paul didn't talk about, I'm surprised he actually did it. We had 25 minutes of the draft giving us his best. So, state of origin. Us Victorians used to love it. So we used to have the rivalry with South Australia and WA. We don't have it now. But every year we get three of the best games, state of origin in rugby league. Can you give us a bit about the start from your career and then your final and the way it changed? Because it's amazing. It is an event that we all watch, and we've been fortunate enough to have it in Melbourne and being able to go to it. But it just seems to go up a level.
Yeah, it does go up a level, especially when you're playing. The best way to explain is when you play, in the NRL, it's pretty quick, right? But then when you go to, the state of origin level, it goes up by about 1.5 metres, 2 metres quicker. It's absolutely mind-blowing. It's funny, though, because you sit there and you go, oh, the impact must be 10 times harder. But because the game's so fast, it's actually not. It's bizarre. It's like you get hit, bang, you're on the field, you're off the ground, you're up, you're playing the ball, you're off again. But it's something for me that I always dreamed of as a young kid to play in. I just love the brutality of it. You weren't too sure how it was going to unfold, but you just knew if you got on top early, you could hold it. If you knew the game was always going to ebb and flow, it was only going to be a matter of someone who was willing to do something out of the ordinary to make the win. But that's what I love about it. You just see guys who can step up to that next level and continue to, push through the pain barrier and push through that fatigue factor and, just keep turning up for their mates. You actually do generally build up a hatred for that period of time through to origin. But funny thing is that you hate them through Origin period, the Queensland guys, but when you go into kangaroo camps, you end up becoming best mates with them. So look, Origin, it's a different kettle of fish. It's so hard to explain, but it really is something that you just been brought up as a young kid, watching with friends and family, watching your childhood heroes run around and walk off with blood all over their face, that you just want to experience that to represent the thing on your back, which is your name, and your family that are sitting in the crowd, which is pretty special,
Oh, that's
quick question.
Amazing.
Luke Gelling here. I noticed that Paul in the introduction said you'd played 15 games for City. Now, I remember in the old New South Wales, it used to be City versus country before picking state of origin. Has that dropped away, or what happened to that, or is it still available?
Yeah, look, I think it's not available anymore. The City country is not being played, but it used to be a proper trial game. When I was a young kid, I used to sit down and watch the City country. I couldn't wait to see how the game would unfold. Yeah. And then obviously, you sort of expect all the ones who stood out in that would be playing for New South Wales. And then when I got an opportunity to play City country, it probably wasn't as much as a trial game for State of Origin. It was probably more just a bit of a taster to see you can go from the NRL just to that extra little bit of a step up. We've obviously players that are playing well that year, that are probably on the verge of, if they can continue their form, maybe play State of Origin the year after or 2 years later. But it was a great concept. I enjoyed it purely because it was another little bit of a test. It was a week away in camp. It was good to meet new players and just to test yourself to see where you're at. And then if you have a really good game, then who knows, if you can take that form back to your club for a couple of weeks before Origin's name, you might get that opportunity. But I think it sort of lost a bit of that aura of when I was a kid watching it compared to when I played it.
Too much sport.
Yeah, that's right, mate.
Yeah.
How did you find Americans? I mean, they really love their sports. Wow. When you got there.
Mate, it's different kettle of fish again over there. I'd never seen anything like it. We obviously were very lucky to go to Dallas, and we got to watch the Cowboys do their sort of captain's run, as you'd say. Got to do a tour of their stadium and their gym facilities. It's absolutely mind-blowing. I went to the new AT&T Stadium, I think it was called. Mind-blowing, absolutely packed out. But it was when you get there in the morning. We got there, I think, at like 10 in the morning. And they were doing the, I can't remember what they call it, tailgating, I think it was. But outside, there was just like proper setups with like TVs, amps, barbecues, people just dancing. It was absolutely mind-blowing. It was like a proper festival outside. Then you walk into the stadium, 100,000 people just standing around, absolutely having a ball. There was no drama, no trouble. I haven't experienced sport like it until I got over there. And again, I absolutely love what they do and how they go about their business over there.
It's the world's biggest screen, that one at that stadium.
Yeah, I know, mate. We were sitting underneath. I was thinking, mate, if this fell, mate, it would have done some bloody damage, I tell you now. But it was pretty mind-blowing.
He'd just get the checkbook out, wouldn't he? What is he? The president, the chairman, the CEO, and general manager, I think his titles are.
Jimmy Johnson.
Well, when we were walking in, you should have seen there was a massive lineup. And then all of a sudden, the liner got stopped. The line got divided, and his helicopter lands right basically at the back. He gets out of the helicopter, walks straight through, and then everything went back to normal. It was like something out of a movie. It was pretty cool.
So you got to see Donald Trump?
Oh no, I didn't see him, but
Jerry Jones, I think that is, the owner.
Yeah.
All right, Luke. In my research just for you coming on the program, I was looking at the best tries of 2017, and we saw the value of an intercept try in the grand final last week.
Yeah.
I saw you come off the line with 90 metres to run, intercepted and went on. I heard the commentator say at the end that you'd done one of 80 metres the week before as well. So just tell us about the anticipation needed just to do something like that, because it's a heck of a long way to get to the other trial line.
Yeah, it was funny, because I played on the wing when I was younger, then I maybe transitioned to the centres and so on, and then I never really scored a try over sort of 50 metres. I think 50 metres was really my longest try. Sort of the back end of my career, I was playing back row. I think I was 33 at the time or something like that. But the week before, we done a lot of video against Manly, and we knew they'd run a play where they'd go to the right, but then they'd shift it back across the ruck and come back to the left and try and catch a napping in defence. Anyway, my teammate Chad Townsend said, "Watch the switch here, watch the switch." So I thought, I reckon they're going to come back here. So I just took off. I just ran up in the line. Next thing you know, the ball was floating in the air and it landed on my chest. And I scored a try. I couldn't believe my luck. And anyway, everyone was, going on about it. But I was pretty tired that one because we'd done a whole lot of defence. I think we had 3 or 4 sets back to back, absolutely out of my feet. But I got to the try line and scored. And, we were getting flogged at the time. And that sort of got us back in the game. And then we slowly sort of made our way back into it. We still lost by a try, but it was pretty amazing. Then I sort of talked to the boys during the week, and then all that training, and then we just practicing defence on the line because we know that Mitchell Pearce likes to stand wide, and Jake Friend likes to throw a long wide pass so Mitchell Pearce could get out straight under his 3-man and create a sort of 4-on-3 opportunity. So anyway, we practiced it during the week. I got a couple of intercepts at training just as a bit of a G up, and game day come, and I looked up and it was identical setup to what we had been practicing at the training all week. I thought, I'm just going to get off the line just in case he comes to the left. So I took off, and the next thing you know, I sent the ball just floating in the air, and then got it with 2 hands, got to the other end. But I was just lucky because I had a big screen in front of me. So I always got told as a young kid, never look back because it slows you down. So I just kept looking straight, but the big screen was right there, so I could sort of see where Latrell Mitchell was coming from. So I just did a little bit of a veer away, just enough to get under the post and score a try. But it's pretty funny that both my 2 long-ish tries come back into my career, and they come 2 weeks in a row. It was mind-blowing.
So it was a little bit like sitting down at an exam and realising you already had all the answers.
Yeah, well, it's like that old saying, you sweat more at practice and you bleed less at war, I suppose you could say. It was a bit like that. We practice, and we got out into the game, and all of a sudden the practice turned into a little bit of fortune for myself, and ended up getting the opportunity to score.
One last question from me, Luke. I just heard you mention that during looking at video, that must have changed between when you started your career and when you finished your career, how much time you spent watching videos of what other people were doing.
Yeah, when we were younger, when I first came in, we hardly done any video, to be honest with you. We would watch one video a week, and it used to be on the old, you put the video in and you'd press fast forward, rewind, watch the full game, sometimes in full, and that would be it. But as you got, the years went on, they'd start breaking them up into, right edge attack, right edge defence, what we're going to see on the weekend, what they do if they kick it to the left, what sort of tap shapes they're going to throw at us. And then you're sort of going from maybe doing a 15 to 20 minute video to doing 5 or 6 videos a week, which would add up to about 2 or 3, maybe even 4 hours of videos. So obviously, the preparation got, a lot more, got better and better as the years went on. And, the coaches obviously honed right in on, what they were seeing in all the games that they were watching and building up to, that we knew we could get a lot of benefit out if we executed right. So, it changed heaps.
And can you see now, the coaching burnout rate now is so high, and no doubt if you are a coach, you could literally be working 24 hours a day just to get all that together, and you maybe never feel like you're on top of things as a coach.
Oh, mate, some of the stuff I see the coaches just here at the Sharks now from a different perspective, being on the other side of it, not being a player. Mate, they'll play the game, they'll go home, they'll review it, they'll cut it up, they'll edit it, then they'll take it in, they'll review that to the players, show them where we sort of fell down, where we were all right at, where we could have been better at, and what we could have executed better. Then the next thing you know, they're halfway through the day, they're watching 3 or 4 videos of the last 2 or 3 weeks against the team you're coming up against, what they're going to throw at you. But it never ends. Then they've got to put the training, the session plan together, the weights program. The list goes on and on and on. You see these guys, they get in there at 5:30 in the morning, and they're not out of there 4 or 5 in the afternoon. Pretty hectic job. But in saying that, these guys that we're talking about love it, right? So they're doing something they absolutely love. They're part of their DNA. I love the idea of it, but committing to 12 hours a day of watching footy on the screen, and I was struggling watching 15, 20 minutes of it. As soon as I knew what we had to do and what we needed to execute, I just wanted to get out of there. But mate, my hat goes off to all these coaches, especially like people like Craig Bellamy, to be on top of his game year in, year out, never miss a beat. Mind-blowing.
Luke, Thanks for coming on the show, Luke. And if it's okay, not just with you, but also, your current employees, we'd love to have you back. That last discussion we've talked about analytics and the game as it is at the moment, both on field and off field, there is nobody, I don't think, in the game that knows both sides of the rugby league like you do. So if it's okay with you, we'd love to talk to you more about the analytics, the modern coaching methods, the training methods. I'm quite sure that Paul Daligan would not mind talking to you about rugby league in the future. Is that fair to say, Paul?
Yep, you got that right.
Yeah, mate, I absolutely appreciate having me on. So thanks very much. And whatever you need, let me know.
Well,
thanks very much, Luke. We really appreciate your time today. And we'll look forward to talking to you in the future as well.
Too easy, boys. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, Luke.
Hey, guys.
Paul, while we're on rugby league, we may as well go to you about what happened to your Rabbitohs last Sunday.
Oh no, it's okay. I said in the lead up, I had predicted Penrith would win it months ago, so mentally I was ready for it. I genuinely was surprised that we made the grand final without Latrell Mitchell. And Wayne Bennett spoke incredibly well about a couple of things during the week. One about the departing Benji Marshall. It was a very touching speech from a guy who doesn't often say a lot. It was Wayne Bennett, sometimes derided for that. But he also spoke at a function during the week in Brisbane that how proud he was of the South Sydney effort. And we just kept losing that game and kept fighting, and we were in it till the end. So in years gone by, we would have lost that game easily. Penrith were just too good, but I saw some interesting stats. They had the lowest points scored in a final series, Penrith, for something like 40 years. Now, that shows you when I said that they have the best defence seen since O.J. Simpson. It wasn't a one-liner. It was true. They didn't score many, but they kept the opponent to even less. Now, the Rabbitohs were particularly impressive with the points scored in the lead-up, but we were just nullified by the Penrith defence. So they didn't have to do much, but they did enough, and they're still partying up there on the Gold Coast. Don't mention the trophy. They hopefully can fix that. Stick the missing players off the trophy back onto it somehow. But all credit to Penrith. It's great for that area. I was interested in Luke's comments about AFL's inroads. So this will certainly solidify rugby league in the west of Sydney. There's 3 million people out in that area, a lot of whom are Penrith fans, with a great nursery. And what you've got to tip your hat to is the majority of that Penrith team are through the system that Luke Lewis came through and local juniors. So it was just a great grand final, and it was just a war of attrition. Whether Latrell Mitchell would have helped the Rabbitohs, something we could discuss, but I was surprised to get that far, and I think we certainly didn't lose any admirers in losing that match. All credit to Penrith. As we mentioned earlier, Nathan Cleary just unflappable and got the job done at the end of the day. So there was an intercept pass thrown by Cody Walker, which is a shame because he wasn't far off winning the Best Player of the Game award. I hope that doesn't haunt him for too long and that we can come back next year. But a part of me says the Rabbitohs Premiership window is slipping. We've got a new coach. We've got a new general because Adam Reynolds is off to the Broncos. Dane Gagai's gone. There's quite a few things that are changing at the Rabbitohs, so I wouldn't be rushing to get on us making the grand final, unfortunately, the next few years. But Penrith dynasty is just starting, and given the Storm's dramas, it'll give the Storm hierarchy some real sleepless nights leading into next season, whether they can get their team back on track to compete.
Paul, the grand final was hard. It was one probably on the back of defensive efforts by Penrith. They showed no imagination when it came to attack. The 2 tries that they did score, I think they scored 2, might have been 3 actually, were really from on the back of one was a intercept, and the other one was just built on the kicking game of Cleary. I was so surprised that South actually didn't go after Cleary. They put no pressure on his kicking game at all during the night, which just meant they were always chasing their tail from the defensive 10 metres. Just interested in what you thought of that.
I wouldn't say they didn't put pressure on. They would have tried to, but Penrith structures, I won't go too controversial, but their structures are set up to protect the kicker. It must have been within the rules or they would have been penalised. They just had a kicker there who had a more influential game than what we did. Adam Reynolds had a groin injury leading in. That kick from the sideline to tie it up, whether he would have got that but for that injury is another point. It's just a shame he had the field goal shot that would have tied it up given the new 2-point rule as well. Champions like Thurston nail those kicks. So unfortunately for Adam Reynolds, he just didn't get it done. It's not a criticism. It's just a fact. The game was there to be tied up, and it's incredibly sad that our longest-serving player, a guy who grew up next to Redfern Oval, came through the system. It's very sad that it fell on his shoulders, and he was devastated after the match, as you'd expect. So Penrith were just a bit more arduous than us. It wasn't their explosiveness. It was just defence.
And Paul, do all players on the list or have played a game, do they get a medal or a ring, do they?
I think those who've played some part in the grand final get the ring, yeah.
So Latrell, I heard Latrell would have got a premiership ring.
No, someone would have had to give him one, and that's happened a lot in years gone by, that the coach has given that up to a player who hasn't played a part in the grand final. I think we should be more worried about this trophy than the medals and the rings, to get this trophy back into the cabinet in one piece, the way the boys are going from the Panthers.
Well, I can imagine it having its own poker machine out at Panthers headquarters. But their celebrations were fairly subdued from what I could see in Queensland on a beach. So good luck to them. And you're right, I think there's a dynasty being built out there on the back of their development. We should have asked Luke if he would have ever thought about proposing after having just won a premiership. I've never
with blood streaming down the face. I mean, I've looked through my Mills and Boone collection. I haven't seen that in there. Will you marry me with the blood down the face and on the knee there at the Suncorp Stadium? So I worked at Sizzler once and we had a proposal there, but yeah, that was not the most romantic thing I've ever seen either. But love is love, and it's good to see love in these testing times. And I guess, yeah, he struck, and they're going to get married. I wonder if they'll get married at the stadium, perhaps.
Well, the lap dance in the change rooms afterwards that he gave his new fiancée was something to see as well. But Souths, yeah, changing of the guard in many levels. Penrith will start next year as premiership favourites. And hopefully the Storm can sort themselves out with obviously the most recent controversy. They'll face their challenges. But the other thing this week, Paul, was the announcement of a 17th team.
Waiting to see who that is, but I could pretty much assure you that Wayne Bennett will coach them. I'd say if you want a price gelding, $1.20 on the Redcliffe Dolphins. 100 million gets you a lot of brownie points at head office. They're very well settled, and I think the point that resonated with me is they've done studies. They're less likely to impact on the fan base of the Broncos and the Titans, and it might surprise you, but the Broncos boss has come out and said he wants another team in Brisbane for the local derby aspect. So that's a great thing for the game. The television revenue will go through the roof. I'm looking forward to it. I don't think Craig Bellamy would like losing your Cameron Munsters or the other person involved in that.
I was going to say, Paul, players are already signed up for them, aren't they? They haven't even been named yet, and they've got a coach and some big-name players already.
Well, maybe that's what the celebration was with Brandon Smith and Munster, with the CEO still trying to work out what white powder it is. It's not Panadol, I can tell him that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so that's the sort of players that would be on the radar for the new team. Wayne Bennett will be the coach, and it will create a lot of excitement in the game to have those Brisbane derbies. Brisbane's an amazing city. It's growing. It'll grow a lot more after these lockdowns, people moving up there, and I'm looking forward to it.
Paul, there's clearly no angst about there being a 17th team and thus creating a bye each week. This resonates with the Tasmanian AFL issue.
You could ask Luke about that if we get him back, but I'm sure the players won't mind a bye just to recover from the niggling injuries. It's one of the toughest sports in the world. I I was going to ask him to confirm that the Warriors, apparently, you don't just get Monday off training, you get Tuesday off after you'd visited New Zealand to play. It's not a joke because it was such a tough game. I'm sure these players won't mind a week off just to rest the niggling injuries. And the bonus to the television revenue's got to be driving this as well. That's got to be why other clubs have agreed to it, because they're going to lose their top players. This team's going to need 25 players, and they're not all going to be able to be found locally just waiting for someone to knock on their door. So that is the query, whether there's enough players to go round. That particular area is a great rugby league nursery. Benji Marshall came from that particular area. So a lot of players have come through that nursery there. But your $1 million players, they're only going to be able to afford one of those. So your Munsters at the top of the list for that.
Isn't Redcliffe where the New Zealand Warriors are basing themselves for 2022?
Maybe, I'm not sure. I know there'd be a golf course there where the Warriors are based, but the Warriors are going to be about 3 years away from home. You've got to respect that. I was going to ask Luke how he would have gone in a bubble if he was still playing in this era, but given his professionalism and the fact he heads home from training for a protein shake, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't be running amok in a bubble a la the Western Bulldogs or whoever else you want to know.
Go on, Curtis.
Luke actually was quite impressive. I was going to ask him if he really was a rugby league player, because some of the on-air talent that is running around from rugby league certainly doesn't make for a meeting of Mensa.
No, Braithen Astor's certainly not the most inspiring commentator. He spoke very well, and there are a lot of sharp blokes in rugby league, so it's not just a simple game for simple people.
and to prove his credentials, Cooter, one line I got down, I love the brutality of it. I mean, that is just a person who loves his rugby league. It's a very honest comment.
All right, Paul, 2 questions on coaching. I see that Brad Arthur re-signed with the Eels during the week. No surprises there?
I think they would have wanted more, but it's a show of faith. It's very similar to what happened with Chris Scott down there at Geelong. With that sort of roster and that fanaticism, they would have expected to do more on his stewardship than they have. The Eels have to look at the team they've got as well, and they've shown faith in him, which I'm all for.
All right, and probably getting the Ripley Award for this year anyway in rugby league. Michael Mcguire to stay at West Tigers.
Well, it stunned me. I just don't think they're organised to organise a sacking. So they couldn't organise a chook raffle at West Tigers at the moment. There's a lot of talk online about how inept they are at head office. People have cancelled their membership and they're still being debited for a new membership. It's just they've got no idea what's going on. It's not a well-run club. And I think they're more nervous about the payout to him and the adverse effect. I've watched that documentary and I didn't find him the most inspiring of coaches. He's no Anthony Robbins, I can tell you that. Well, but if you do want a few F-bombs, tune in and watch Michael Mcguire talk to his players.
Well, maybe they wanted a happy ending for this year's doco.
Whether the players are happy about it or whether they're sick of being screamed at with the F-bomb, it's a matter for their players, I guess.
All right. Well, Paul, we can't let this opportunity go without congratulating you on your year. I opened the time capsule from back in March. 7 out of 8 teams that made the 8 predicted by you. Excellent work, including the Gold Coast, which was a reach, I thought, but you managed to get there. And also your early prediction of Penrith Panthers to win the premiership was also correct. So I think that's 6 years in a row, my son.
Well done, Paul.
Even a broken clock can get it right twice a day, as they say. So,
Well, you've set the bar high, so we'll be waiting now just to see how your tips for next season will go.
Well, when Cleary was out, I quickly revised my Panthers prediction to win it all from months back, but then I reinstated it in time for the big match. All
right, Paul. Now, we can't let today go without the Spring Carnival. We're well into it. Gelding, I've got one word for you to start this segment, and I'm just going to stand back once I say it. Zaki.
Oh. Oh. Oh.
Is the hip pocket talking?
Before I start on the rant, I would just like to say to John, well done on getting Luke Lewis for the show, John. Pat yourself on the back, mate. Great effort. Now, we go from a pat on the back to being willowed yesterday. I'm sure, and we'll see later on in the tips of backing a few of Craig Williams's horses, but Craig certainly, as a leading jockey, certainly wasn't a red letter day. Some of the rides he had, Zaki, the trainer was interviewed from Sydney and said, that is not how you ride the horse. This horse has won 6 races in a row by being ridden on pace and forcing its way. Yesterday in a Group 1 race, Craig decided to ride it completely differently. He was reefing and pulling at the horse, so it didn't get settled in a race, and it certainly performed well below we know Zaki can perform.
Below market expectations, Gilden.
Well below market expectations, and I think people just put it the right way. We were willowed with that ride yesterday, so it'll be very interesting to see if he keeps the ride, because if James McDonald could get down from Sydney, he would certainly be replaced. But it'll be interesting. I know the trainer has come out strongly and said that is not the way to ride the horse. So what would you do in a $5 million race in the Cox Plate in 2 weeks' time when a jockey doesn't follow riding instructions, Professor? It would remind me, it needs Alan Jones, I think, in the ownership, because we have seen Alan Jones give Craig Williams and David Hayes a fair spray after he got Miss Finland beaten. But believe it or not, I don't think that was his worst ride for the day.
All right, here we go, Gilding. Come on.
Now, just before you go on, Gilding, I read the steward's report.
Yes.
For that race. Williams is quoted as saying the pace didn't suit Zaki and the horse is not comfortable around Caulfield.
Right. Well, if he says the pace doesn't suit the horse and you're a leading jockey, don't you change the pace and go around them? There was only 5 horses in the field. You don't pull the horse and puff and wrench. And look, the track may have been a bit hard for it. There may be excuses like that. It reefed and teared a bit, but the jockey's in charge of it. I just wonder why he didn't let it go through its gears and go around a couple. Obviously, the stewards forgot to ask him that question, Professor.
What did you think about the win of Probabile in that race?
Well, Probabile is one of our favourites, as you know. Fantastic for her to win. She needs a dry track. If that kind of track's presented Cox Plate Day, she may be one at odds to follow. But I thought the run of the race was certainly non-conformist and thought it had it won. But yeah, definitely can follow all those horses. It's a bit.
Gilding, can I just ask a question? Just arises from Marks without notice. There's the stewards' inquiries there and the stewards' report on every race, and jockeys have to explain themselves. Is that what happens on every race? That the jockey has to explain, I presume, why they didn't win the race? Is that what happens?
No, not really, John. They look into sometimes if a well-backed horse, and remember this horse was showing $1.30 in a Group 1 race and all that, and if it performs below expectations, has not ridden the way that they think it normally runs, they ask the jockeys for an explanation. And, you know, these things are animals, so you can say, look, it had an off day or it had this or that. But to say, oh, the pace didn't suit the horse in a 5-horse race when he dictates what pace the horse runs at.
I just find those extraordinary, particularly the horse doesn't like Caulfield. What did he ask him?
About to get better.
Yeah,
I tell you who enjoyed it, though. The bookies, they'd be partying like the Penrith Panthers. That knocked out every multi in the country, that thing.
Oh, well, as we said on That's Racing, Zaki was a good one to have in your parlays just to add some value to them and things like that. But when you get a ride like that, it certainly won't be on his tape of highlights.
Now,
I
Gelding,
haven't seen a more destructive goblin since Lord of the Rings. Anyway.
Yeah. And John, what you say is so right. The stewards question them, and say something silly like, "It didn't like Caulfield," or the pace didn't suit the horse. Wouldn't your next action be, well, why didn't you do anything about it?
That just strikes me as BS. I might as well say, listen, here's the playbook of jockey's answers to the tribunal. I'll give you answers 3, 7, 9, 11, 15. See you later.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Given you're a Caulfield resident, Gilding, have you taken offence to the fact the horse didn't like your hometown?
Sorry, Peter.
I'm sure the horse likes Caulfield, and I'm sure maybe if James McDonald had been aboard, we may have seen a different result. So that's a nice way of saying we weren't very impressed with the ride. And when the stewards question a jockey about it, John, I think there should be some kind of in any job, everyone's performance is calculated. We all work in professions where our jobs are continually reviewed and our performance is reviewed, and action taken by employers. Be interesting. The stewards just don't seem to take any action against what could be regarded as a ordinary ride. Is that a nice way of putting it?
Peter, I was right about Francis the Talking Mule. The horses do talk, and this horse spoke to the jockey and said, "I don't like Caulfield." Go and tell those people.
Yeah.
Seriously.
well, Gelding, if we thought that Stewart's report was BS, the next race where Craig rode the favourite might have. Yeah, what can we say?
Well, Craig was aboard the favourite, beaten by a length and a half, Brooklyn Hustle. I think I received a text from the Giraffe comparing it to a certain event in Sydney where he steered it right in the rear. This horse was just not given a chance to win the race. It is a horse that flies down the outside, and Craig rode it in Brisbane when it won flying down the outside. For some unknown reason, John, he decided to try to weave it through a group of horses and just run into the rears of many, many horses there. So I don't know, if you were on the stewards panel, John, wouldn't you ask, why don't you ride the horse according to the way that it's normally ridden?
Well,
or would you?
I just think that what I'm hearing is that you'll get some BS response from the jockey and the stewards will say, "Oh, that's okay." I would think the multi-million-dollar industry that you've got here needs a little bit more inquisition than what you've got. Kudo, I think you seem to be agreeing that you're not too happy with the jockey performance.
I think Professor will probably raise what was said in the stewards report, but the interesting thing is it flopped out to last inside the eventual winner, and he has ridden for luck. And it just seemed to really, and the commentary around his ride was scathing, but the stewards report really doesn't say much at all.
No, but the thing is, for Craig, he had more to worry about because after the stewards' room, he had to go into the police drug bus. It was that bad a ride.
Yeah.
He had to be on drugs.
What is written in the paper, John, is a nice way of writing it. Favourite backers had a tough watch with Brooklyn Hustle. Yes. Craig Williams was unable to find clear running for a $3.40 favourite for most of the straight. Is that a suggestion that it's either A, an incompetent ride, B, a way to get a horse beaten? It just seems to be And those questions aren't asked by the stewards.
Or
He gave, as you rightly said, he gave answers 2, 4, 6 and 8 for that one, after giving answers 3, 5, 7 and 9 for Zaki.
When he's had a win, though, the interview afterwards, it's almost like the Academy Awards. They want to have to gong him off because, my God, he can blow his trumpet better than Louis Armstrong. I tell you what, once he wins one.
Yep, exactly right.
Building the interesting part with it, if you were an owner and he rode it so passively, it didn't ride it aggressively when he should have, would he ever sit on the horse again?
Oh, definitely not. And Mark, the professor, can tell you, we were at Caulfield one day when he not slaughtered Miss Finland, but it was a favourite for the 1,000 guineas, and it should have won by 4 or 5 lengths. Alan Jones was one of the owners, and Mark and I saw Alan Jones berate Craig Williams and David Hayes for 10 minutes in where the horses returned. He couldn't weigh in. Alan Jones just gave it to him, and they just stood there. It was like, you did this. The stewards would have been an easy task after listening to Alan Jones. Now, Professor, I don't know whether you want to comment on that.
Well, it was an interesting viewing, Gelding, to see that, and certainly Alan Jones is a passionate owner. The steward's report says as follows: when questioned regarding the tactics today, rider Craig Williams explained that he had no specific instructions other than to ride the mare where she felt comfortable. Where she felt comfortable. Okay.
This is the Torquay Mill.
Yes.
They're telling them where they're comfortable.
Yeah. He added.
That was answer 17.
He added.
She's obviously not claustrophobic then, where he put
her. He added the slow tempo during the early stages did not suit the mare settling towards the rear of the field, which contributed to him deciding to shift to the inside of runners passing the 1,000 metres. He added that the slow tempo, whilst it did not suit Brooklyn Hustle, his intention had always been to settle back and make his run around the field. However, this did not eventuate due to the circumstances of the race.
That's it.
That's it.
Don, is that answer number 8?
Yeah, no, Gelding, I know there's a thing called the horse whisperer. If they can work somebody out that the horse whispers back and understands what they're saying, that would make sense, because the horse can say, I felt a bit uncomfortable, it was a bit slow, and they weren't my friends, those horses. I mean, this is absolute, really nonsense.
Would it be good to say, as a punter, John, you could go down to the horse stables before and say, how are we feeling today? We okay? We feel like a run. You want to run on the inside or the outside? You want to, what kind of pace do you want? It'd be great to get this information straight from the horse. Maybe that's something for the broadcasters to look at.
No, apparently Craig Williams gets it from the horse. That's what I'm saying. So it's the most.
That's what I mean. Yep.
All right, Gelding. Let's leave off those sorts of rides for this morning.
Can we comment on a couple of good rides, Professor?
Well, I was going to say Brett Preble rode a double, and he's got to thank Mornington Gate for that.
Oh,
because both those rides would have been ridden by at least one of the jockeys that's been currently suspended.
Brett Preble's having a fantastic run in the Group 1s, picking up rides on horses like Incentivise, Probabile. Those horses would have probably been ridden by Jamie Carr. And when you're picking up something like $32,000 a week, that's a huge gap in income. If you win $1 million race, they pick up $32,000 as their percentage. And Brett Preble's rode 4 of them in the last couple of weeks. So, wow, you've got to say, Brett Preble, Jai McNeil, Williams and Oliver are certainly picking up the rides that the Mornington Gate jockeys would have been riding, and it's certainly to their benefit.
Yeah. What did you think about Animo in the Caulfield Guineas? Good enough to win a Cox Plate?
Oh, yes.
Tough question, Gelding.
Let's no, Animo's been one of our horses, Professor, we've been on. And it was beautifully ridden by Damien Oliver, and that's probably the first win he's had on a favourite for a while. But he rode it beautifully, had the run of the race, horse moved in beautifully. Cox Plate, very different scenario. This was a 3-year-old race. It's up against probably what I regard as the best horses in the world, in Australia, and Very Elegant. Saki will be ridden differently. Will it have a chance? Yes, because 3-year-olds have a fantastic record in the Cox Plate. And, of course, they get down to 51 kilos. So, he'll be dropping from 57 kilos to 51 kilos in that type of ride. Now, his style of racing probably suits the Cox Plate, but then again, I think if it's in the Cox Plate, Professor, I think I'll be going Very Elegant or Zaki to get back. And as we can see, the odds, Very Elegant is $9 in the Cox Plate now. Zaki's out to $2.80. Anamo's in at $7, so it's got to be right in there, Professor.
All right. Another Group 1 winner in the Turek handicap, I'm Thunderstruck, ridden by Jai McNeil. Mick Price and Michael Kent Jr. saying they're heading to the Golden Eagle in Sydney.
Well, why wouldn't you head to a race worth $7.5 million? This is one of the races that Peter V'landys has put on. Huge prize money to be in competition with the Caulfield Cup, because next week, of course, is Everest racing. I'm Thunderstruck, Professor. We've been on. We were on it when it was an unlucky third in the Sir Rupert Clarke Stake. Jai McNeil, probably the rider of the meeting, to get it out when he did. The horse just got out the straight and flew home, and certainly be one of our horses to follow, Professor. I'm Thunderstruck.
Okay, and the last one from me, Delphi in the Herbert Power Stakes. That guarantees a start in the Caulfield Cup. How will it go in the Cup?
Certainly has to be in the mix, Professor, together with the Chosen One, which ran second, trained by one of your ex-trainers in Murray Baker. Delphi's an Irish horse brought over. Freeman's have got it absolutely flying. I think drops to 52 in the Caulfield Cup. So has to be right in there with a chance, Professor, together with non-conformists. However, I can't see them beating Incentivised, Professor. I think it's probably a good thing, Incentivised. For the Caulfield Cup, I think it might win by 2 or 3 lengths. And I think horses like Delphi, the Chosen One, and non-conformists may be filling out the places, Professor.
Okay, have you got...
but good each way bet.
Have you got 3 horses for the Black Book over the next couple of weeks?
Oh, Professor, pretty hard to... when you said we've got a few. I've got more than a couple. Of course, I've got Very Elegant and Saki to follow in the Cox Plate. In the Everest next week, I think we'll all get some money if we follow Classic Legend. Should be able to beat Nature Strip, another one of ours. We think Incentivised, Professor, to win the Caulfield Cup in relation, but also back Delphi, Chosen One, and non-conformance each way if you want some odds. Animo, maybe if it doesn't go to the Cox Plate, to follow. Horses maybe to follow. One up in Sydney, Paulini, won its 4th start yesterday. This is a Blue Army horse and will be one to follow. Melbourne Cup, Professor, we might wait and see what horses come from overseas and what horses are passed to run. So we might have that later in the week. But horses to follow in the next couple of weeks, probably Very Elegant, Classic Legend, and Incentivised, Professor.
All right, Gelding, today's racing at Ballarat and Donald, have you got any red hot tips to finish the show with?
going to follow Willow to bounce back in Ballarat today after what would
You're
be
a brave
regarded
man,
as
Gelding. You're a brave man.
no,
He'd get stuck in a gold mine the way he's going.
Yeah, the way he performed yesterday, I'm sure he'll bounce back. We'll go race number three, Ferrati, one of our favourites and a winning horse in the. This is the Seymour Cup being run at Ballarat, Professor. We'll have to go race 8.
Well, that makes
10.
sense.
Yeah, race 8, number 10, Mr. Brightside, one of our favourites. And in the last, Professor, race 9, number 12, Flying Mascot. There's an omen bet in Donald, of course. Race 5, number 2, Dash for the Bar. But I have a query about the jockey, Professor, and I sent through an each-way tip for everyone at Echuca tomorrow, subject to the ride, race 10, number 4, Professor, tomorrow.
What was that one? Dash to the Bar, Gelding.
Dash to the Bar is race 5, number 2. What we had to do after a couple of Willows rides yesterday, Professor, if we had been out of Caulfield. Yeah, and also tomorrow in Echuca, race 10, number 4, each way.
It would be nice to be able to go to a bar, wouldn't it?
Well, it would be good.
Be nice to do many things.
It's true.
Oh, dear. All right, gentlemen, thanks very much for your participation today.